published, 17:28 Eastern Standard Time, the 8th of January 2018, updated, 8:59 Eastern Standard Time, the 9th of January 2018. Josh Brownhill's most vivid memory of being taken to Manchester City as a child came when Stephen Ireland volleyed an added time winner against Reading. My dad had put a little bet on City winning 2-1 and we were right behind the goal when it happened. It still sticks in my mind, says Bristol City's impressive young midfielder, who returns to the Etihad on Tuesday to face his boyhood heroes in an unlikely Carabao Cup semi-final first leg. Dad is Gary Brownhill, a lifelong City fan who played in the 1970s youth team with Peter Barnes and Gary Owen before injury forced him to retire. He and wife Elaine will be there to watch the 22-year-old son compete against Sergio Aguero and Kevin De Bruyne. It'll be the first time I want City to lose, he smiles. Bristol City midfielder Josh Brownhill has his sights on a second scalp in the Carabao Cup after helping knock out Manchester United. Brownhill will now go up against Manchester City, though Josh also supported City. He played at United's academy until being released at 16 for being too small. He took revenge last month as part of the Bristol City team who beat Jose Mourinho's men 2-1 to put the championship side into the last four with Chelsea, Arsenal and City. Reflecting on his time at United from the age of 5, Brownhill says, "I'd take a Man City towel into training for a bit of a joke. There was plenty of mickey taking, good-natured, as United were the dominant team back then," he says. "I was in the same age group as Ashley Fletcher, James Wilson, Josh Harrop. First-team players such as Michael Carrick and Paul Scholes would come over to put on coaching sessions when they were doing their badges. Wayne Rooney popped over a couple of times to say hello, but I was probably too starstruck to say much growing up. Alano and Robinho were his favourite City players, but Rooney was Brownhill's biggest idol. When Brownhill was growing up, Alano and Robinho were his favourite City players. Brownhill played at United's academy until he was 16, when he was let go for being too small. Aged 11, he wrote a poem about the United star at school that was selected for a book talking about my generation, Cheshire verses, and included a prophetic final verse. His life is so ace, and he keeps up the pace. I wish this was me. One day maybe we'll see." That dream appeared to be over 5 years later when Tommy Martin, United's youth coach, broke the devastating news that Brownhill was being released. "It was a horrible time even though it's worked out for me," says Brownhill. "I've played 150 first-team games, but you don't know that will happen when you're 15 or 16. Fortunately, the summer that he left Carrington he had a 6-inch growth spurt." Brownhill's dad Gary is a lifelong Manchester City fan who played in the 1970s youth team. Fortunately, Josh enjoyed a growth spurt of 6 inches the summer he left Carrington and was picked up by Preston North End, whose manager Simon Grayson gave him a debut at 17. A loan spell at Barnsley in 2016 saw him play twice at Wembley, and when manager Lee Johnson moved to Bristol City, he took Brownhill with him. Last month, the midfielder experienced the most remarkable 3 days. He celebrated his 22nd birthday on the Tuesday, was in the Bristol City team who downed United on the Wednesday, and signed a new 3.5-year contract on the Thursday. "Yes, I can't quite believe it all happened like that. It's amazing," he says. The 22-year-old has recently signed a new 3.5-year contract with the Robins, as it wasn't like a normal birthday. "I had to stay in the apartment on my own to rest for the game, and restricted myself to speaking to family and friends on FaceTime. Everyone knows what the United result meant. You could see it by looking at Corey Smith's face when he scored the winner. I was up against Luke Shaw and Anthony Marshall, very daunting, and was probably more aware of my defensive duties than usual. But it wasn't just a case of us sitting back as a team. We were adventurous when we could be and got our rewards." Mourinho came into our dressing room to say well done. "I had a quick word with Marcus Rashford and Scott McTominay, who I knew from United, and then walked out to the tunnel to see Phil Neville doing the semi-final draw in front of me." Brownhill was a boyhood City fan who was in Manchester United's academy until 16. "It was probably 2 a.m. before I fell asleep. And the next morning I drove to the station, collected my agent, and travelled on to Ashton Gate for midday to sign my new deal." Brownhill's parents still live near Manchester, and Dad rises at 4:30 a.m. to work as a binman. His round in Altrincham including several footballers' homes such as United's Juan Mata. If things had worked out differently, Josh might have ended up at Manchester City. He trained with both Manchester clubs until he had to make a choice at the age of 7. Despite the family allegiance, it was decided United would be the better place to develop. It might have been a circuitous route, but Josh will finally step out for City in a big match at the Etihad tonight.